In this tutorial, I'm going to make a Pokeball. And it's not going to be 100% accurate Pokeball. It's going to have the feel of a Pokeball. So we'll just get that clear right away. All right, so I'm going to come up here. I'm going to say File, Reset. Do you really want to reset? Yes. Okay, so I have a brand new clean scene. I'm going to come over here to Create Geometry Sphere. And I'm going to go to Keyboard Entry. And in Keyboard Entry, I'm going to adjust my radius to 100. And just right click here to make sure perspective is active and then hit create. Now I'm just going to hit Z on my keyboard to zoom out, right click to get out of sphere creation mode, and I'm going to come over here to modify. If I hit, I'm going to come here to default shading and turn on edged faces because I want to see the geometry of my sphere. So let's go ahead. We're just going to right click on this right away and say convert to edit poly. And I'm going to come in here and in Polygon, up here, I'm going to kind of hold my middle mouse button and scroll my mouse wheel to zoom in a little bit. What I want to do is I'm going to grab this row of polygons right here. And I think I'm going to grab this row, actually, is the one that I want. So not the very top, not the one beneath it, but that third row down. I'm going to grab that. And then I'm going to find here in Edit Poly, I'm going to find my Edit Polygons rollout. And there's Extrude. Next to it is the setting. So I'm going to pop that open. And I just want to set this to -10. And I'm going to hit OK, which is just the little check mark. I'm going to confirm that I'm happy with what I just did. So there we go. All right, so now we have that kind of set up there. So the next thing I want to do is I want to have a groove that goes along the side to match. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to Edge, and we're going to double click on this side. And then we're going to hold Control on our keyboard, and here in the selection rollout, I'm going to click Polygon, which will select all the edges that make that up. Now if I hold Alt and region select here on the top, I can deselect these polygons that I don't need, right? Alt and deselect. And I don't need these guys here in the front as well. So I just need this one row coming all the way along the length. Let's just orbit around here. There we go. This is what I want. Okay. And so now let's take that and we're just going to hit extrude again, but we're going to change our setting from the default of group to local normal, leave it at -10 and say okay. And so now we've made that little bit of geo. Let's select this polygon and delete it, the one next to it. I'm going to click on this polygon here and orbit around because I want to be able to see. Why don't we change the color of our mesh? I'm going to come up here to the color swatch that's there and just change that to a different color. Because I want to be able to see when I'm clicking on stuff. It's a little bit difficult when it's a reddish color. And so the back face of this polygon, I'm just going to click and delete those. All right, orbit around. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to go into Vertex here. I'm going to zoom in really close. I want to grab this row of vertices right here. Right, I kind of have this angle coming in, and you can't see them here. If I hit F3, that'll toggle wireframe. That's basically the vertex points from this edge that are coming down. So I'm just going to right click here in front. I'm going to grab the handle here, and I'm going to kind of move this over to the side like so. So I want to be able to see where they're sitting here in the scene. Now, sorry, I've clicked on polygon. I'm going to go back to edge. I'm going to click in negative space, so I have nothing selected. And what I'm going to do is I want to go and I'm in edge mode. And I want to turn on target weld. I'm just going to click on this edge here, which gives me a little dotted work line. And I'm going to click on the edge above it. I'm going to weld it together. I'm just going to do that with the same one next to it. I'm going to click on that and get that edge above it. Perfect. All right. So now we have this groove. The only problem with our little groove here is we want it to be straight. It's at this weird angle. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go to vertex point, and I'm going to click on this vertex point here, and I'm going to come all the way down here to the bottom, not the bottom rightmost button, but the one to the left of that. that's orbit. And if I click on that, I get this little yellow space. If I orbit, click inside it, it orbits. I'm going to right click to end that. But what I want to do is I'm going to orbit, I'm going to click outside because I want to rotate my canvas. I kind of want to rotate it to make a straight line out of this angled edge above. And if I right click to get out of that, I can grab that entire row. And so up here at the top where it says create selection, so I'm going to type 01. And now over here, I'm going to find my edit geometry rollout, and I'm going to make this planar along Y. And then I'm just going to kind of move that down a little bit. And let's see. Let's go ahead and we'll enter a value here on the Y-axis. Let's go ahead and we'll just say 7.5. All right. And now I'm going to come back down to that orbit. Whoops. Viewport configuration. Don't know why that turned on. Let's turn that off. I'm going to click orbit again and click. And I want to get that row beneath it. Right click to get out of orbit. I'm going to grab this row. I want to make sure I only have this row. I'm going to do the same thing. Y. And then I can grab that, and this time the Y value needs to be negative 7.5 and hit enter. There we go. So let's zoom out a little bit. We'll take a look at this. You see we got this nice little groove over on the side looking good. All right, that's looking pretty neat. So from here, the next thing for us to do is we're going to use some tools that we call Chamfer, which we've used before. So I'm just going to double click on this ring up here. Now that's selected red. If I hit F3, you can see it's red. And then I want to double click on this edge here and this edge here. And basically I'm grabbing all these primary edges that make up the object. I'm just going to click chamfer now. And I want to, I'm going to go ahead and give it a chamfer value of 1. Let's go a little bit bigger. Let's say 2. And I want to change the connect edge segments. I'm going to set that to 0. So I just want to have a little bit of a chamfered edge on it. And so I'll say OK. And I'm going to grab the edge here. And if I just hit chamfer, open that up, it'll do the same action again. All right. So there we go. Now we have the basic structure of our Pokeball, but we only have half of it. Well, this is where we start to use our tool symmetry. So I'm going to go ahead and place my symmetry on here. And now first thing you'll notice is if I orbit around, let's come over here, and I am going to maximize this viewport and zoom out a little bit. I'm going to go up here, I'm going to turn off the eyeball. And so this is what the bottom of our mesh looks like at the moment. All right, it's kind of messy down there. And what I'd like to do is just have it match what's at the top. And so I'm just going to turn this back on. And now you'll see that the symmetry, if I open this up so you can see the sub-object, symmetry has a mirror plane. And so it's taking what's up here in positive Z and it's mirroring it down to the bottom. Now, along with that, we could say, well, hey, I want to do the same thing, but I want to do it on the X-axis, so I'm going to turn that on. And now you can see that the right side has been mirrored over to the left as well. All right, and so we have the same thing going on both sides. Now I can just right-click on my model and say Convert to Editable Poly. And then I'm going to come back in here and go into Element and click on my mesh. And I want to find Polygon Smoothing Group, so I'm going to say Auto Smooth. So that'll go through and smooth it all out. All right, so now our next step is we kind of like what we got. It's kind of neat. It'd be great if we could get some different materials on it. So let's go back up to Edit Poly here. So it's at the top level. It's not a sub-object. And we're going to do Rendering, Material Editor, Slate Material Editor. Now inside here, we're going to expand this to make it a little bit bigger. In order to get more than one material on it, because we all know that we could come up here and change color, but that's just the default shading that's on it. It's not really a proper material. And so what we're going to do is we're going to bring over a multi-sub object. If I region select, there you go, multi-sub object, there it is. This allows us to assign more than one material to an object. So I'm going to open up my scan line set of materials, and I want to bring in standard legacy. I'm just going to click the little minus to make that smaller. I'm going to drag this in. right? Drag that little dot and connect it. I'm going to bring in 2 more. So I'm going to want this thing to be 3 different colors. So do 1, 2, 3. And let's go to create, because I want to make sure we're not in the sub-object when we assign our material. All right, and so make sure your model is selected, hit F4 so you can see edge faces. Select the material, the multi-sub object, that's the one you want. If I double click on these, it'll make their icons larger. And you can right click at any time on a material and say layout children, it'll organize it. So now you see that the material is assigned because it has the hash marks. If you have just one of these assigned and you right click and assign a material, then only it will be assigned. You see that? So if I right click and assign, now the entire material is assigned to it, the full multi-sub object. So now let's go in here and we could very simply just change colors by coming in here and saying red, white, and we'll do like a dark gray kind of color. Maybe give it a slight blue. All right, there we go. So even there, that's just basic coloring. But if we click on a material, we can actually do things like change the specular level. If I crank that up, see how shiny it gets. But I can even make it more of like a hard surface kind of shiny. If I over crank that specular level, see how it has that tight, specular dot on it. I could do the same thing with the white. Crank that up, adjust the glossiness. So now that feels a little bit more like plastic-like. And then I'm going to leave this black. Let's actually take that all the way black. And we'll give it a slight glossiness by cranking that up some. There we go. All right. Now see how that kind of feels a little bit more rubbery as opposed to these, which are a little bit more plastic-like. Now let's go into Modify, Element. I want to make sure I have Select. So I'm going to come up here to Select Object. I don't want to accidentally move things while I'm doing this. So with Element selected, I'm going to click on my mesh and assign everything ID 1. All right. And actually, let's go ahead, let's not do that. Let's change it to ID 3. We'll have everything be that kind of dark black color. Or, I'm trying to think about what's the easiest way to do this. And I think it might be, you know what? I think it is actually to just assign everything to ID 1. So everything's that sort of red shiny now, right? So we can orbit around it, kind of see that. And if I go into vertex point and I click on this vertex point, the one at the very top, I'm going to hold Control and click on Polygon and see how that grows my selection out. So anything that you have selected, when you click, then it becomes active. And so I can change this to, let's actually grow that all the way out here. And this is going to be ID 2. And now if I grab that point again, oops, there it is, it's still selected. I hit Polygon, I can make that 1. And now if I come back here, I'm going to go to Edge. I just want to double click on this edge here and then hold Control and hit Polygon. And I want to just, let's go out to our full view. We can make this smaller so we can see it. I'm going to come over here and restore viewports. Oh, perfect. Right here in the front, I just want to deselect the polygons that make up the top of this button that we have. I just want to have these selected. And I'm going to go ahead and assign these to ID 3. That's Polygon Material IDs. I'm going to go into Edge and click on one edge and hit Ring and then hold Polygon. And then again, these are going to be ID 3. And there we go. That is the process for going through and assigning those. If I click in negative space, if I click on editable poly, I could go ahead and I could put a brand new symmetry on here where I leave these. So now it's, if we orbit, Control R, if I orbit around to the bottom, if I get rid of that symmetry, right? As soon as I turn it on, now it's taking what's above there, moving over to the side, and I can turn on the x-axis as well. All right, and if at any point you're not getting, say you worked on the other side, just know that if you just click flip, it'll change which side is the one being mirrored. When you're all done, you right click and convert that to poly. All right, and that's how you build this object, and that's how you go through and you assign multiple materials to the surface of an object.